What's up weirdos, it is spooky season and I have a sewing machine, 2 meters of the most perfectly autumnal needle cord fabric, I have enough tea to fill a bathtub, and I have a vague concept of what it is I'm going to do. So, join me in making this DIY pumpkin inspired dungaree dress. First off, to create the pattern for the skirt, I'm actually adapting a circle skirt pattern that I made a few years ago into a half circle skirt pattern by making the waistline longer. And I'm going to link the video where I previously made that pattern, as well as the website I used to work out my measurements, in the description. After I edited that, I placed it on my folded fabric and added a few centimeters for a hemline. To create the waistband, I just flattened out my skirt so I could get the vague length, and I cut a 10 centimeter strip all along the length of that. So for the top part, I don't have a pattern. I am just kind of going to go with vibes and like my own measurements. So my trusty tape measure, I'm going to measure around where I want it to sit and like the widest part. Make a mental note of that, and then how I want that. So there's about a 10 centimeter difference between how wide I want the top and how wide I want the bottom. And for the height, we're going to be about 23 centimeters. So I'm just going to roughly cut that out. Now I decided to do this on the fold for symmetry, so I needed half the width measurement. So for example, if it was 30, I'd measure 15. I did that for both of them, marked it out with a heat erasable pen, joined up all the lines, and then once you cut it out, you'd have something that would be perfectly symmetrical with like half the measuring. To add some structure and support at the top where the buckles were going to go, I made a small facing using an offcut just by laying that piece on top and snipping around it. Okay, I am going to do a pocket I'm going to do a pattern for the pocket. Now watch closely because this is very technical. Piece of A5 size paper, and I'm going to fold over a corner. So once everything is cut out, you should have something that looks a little bit like this. First of all, we have our skirt pieces. You'll see here that I cut them in half, making 2 skirt pieces, just because I'm wanting a side zip and I wanted there to be a seam on both sides so it was symmetrical. We have our waistband pieces here. We have our top piece and our facing. The back piece is pretty much the same as the top piece, as well as its facing. I just added a diagonal on top. We have our pockets just here, and down here at the bottom we have our straps. I ended up just doing the same thing as I did for the waistband, because I like that length, and with everything cut out, we're now ready to get on with it. With a heat erasable pen, I just drew the design for the face that I wanted for the top panel, got some scrap black fabric which I trimmed down to size, pinned behind my orange piece, and then went on a sewing machine over those lines that I'm drawing because we're doing reverse applique for this. So once you've got that stitched down in place, here's what it looked like without the cutouts. I grabbed a seam ripper, and very carefully, so that you didn't poke through both sides, just the top part, you're just going to make a teeny little hole in the top so you can get your scissors in and trim the shapes that we need, revealing the design underneath. I like to give the edges a bit of a rub to give it a bit of a frayed effect and get rid of any loose threads. And here it is. To attach the facing, I pinned them right sides together and sewed a 1 centimeter seam allowance all the way around with a just normal straight stitch. I clipped the corners so that when it was folded it would lay flat, and then once you flip it round it looks a little something like this. Now the rest of the sides are going to want to follow that fold, what you just did, so you can iron it if you want, but I just sewed them down, give it a nice neat top stitch so that it would lay flat. This is what it looks like. Before we sew the back piece in pretty much the same way as we did the front, we do have to make the straps. So I folded them in half widthways, so to make one long skinnier strap, sewed it down one end and then pushed it right way around with a knitting needle, which you can see me struggling to do here. After ironing them flat, you're just going to go over them again on the sewing machine at each edge with a nice top stitch to keep it one, nice and secure, and also two, nice and flat. You're now ready to place them on the top of your back piece as you see me doing here. Then you're going to do the facing and sew all the way around just as we did with our front piece. The first thing that you're going to need to do for the pockets is fold over the diagonal towards the back by 1 centimetre and do that on both pieces. You're again going to top stitch that to keep it nice and flat. We're then going to fold and iron the longest two remaining sides the exact same way. We don't need to do the shorter two remaining sides because they're going to be caught up in the seams later. So carefully with your iron, you're going to do that and then arrange them at the sides of your skirt like this. We're then going to sew those two parts we just folded. So I think this is a really good place to leave things for today. I have the top pieces done, they're ready to go. I've got the pockets attached, they're ready to go. I could theoretically do the rest of it now, but usually when that happens, I want to rush because I want to get it finished and something goes wrong, and things are going really well for me. We're getting there. Day 3 and we will be finished today, which is very exciting. Got to attach the skirt, the zipper, top to the bottom, and hem. Cautiously excited. With the side where you don't want the zip on your skirt, you're going to line them up from top to bottom and stitch them with a 1 centimetre seam allowance as you see me doing here. So what I am doing now is I'm getting the waistband pieces and just laying them out on the iron, and just on one edge of the long sides what we're going to do is fold them over 1 centimetre for our seam allowance and just fold that flat on one side. Now the reason we're only doing one side, which you'll see in a second, is that because we've got two pieces to encapsulate the skirt parts and the top parts, one of them we're actually just going to attach as normal with some seams. The other one we kind of have to fake it. I'm going to get my skirt pieces. I've already stay stitched them so they're not going to stretch, which is a step I don't usually take, but I'm trying to be better. Trying. So, going to take one of my waistband pieces, lay that right side facing upwards with the flap at the bottom. My skirt I'm also going to lay right side up and lay that flat on here like so. And then our second piece of waistband is going to go right side facing down. So it's like I'm sandwiching the top of the skirt in between the two waistband parts. So I'm going to pin this, sew across this long line, and then show you the next part in a few minutes. So I've just sewn this so we can see we've got the skirt sandwiched in between the waistband, and because we did that fold on the iron before we attached it, you'll now see that when I just fold it up, it looks like a nice finished edge. Of course it'll need a bit of pressing, but now what we can do is grab our top pieces. This would just get sandwiched in here. And I would recommend taking your time measuring to get this right. Don't forget as well, you need to take into account the seam allowance for the final seam we're going to do at the other side. What I would recommend is pinning it in place to make sure that you're happy with the fit of it and doing a little dance if you're ready to move on. A final bit of top stitching to keep that all in place is what you need to do before we're ready to do the final thing and attach a zip. To start off attaching your zip, you need to place your skirt pieces together with your zip so you can place a little pin to mark how far you're actually going to need to sew. So here you can see my pin, and after sewing the seam up to the pin, we're going to iron the remaining parts flat. You'll need to pin and sew one side of the zip as close to the teeth as possible, and for this I do recommend that you change to a zipper foot, though it's not essential. You can make do without one. You're then going to pin the other side of the skirt down to the other side of the zip and sew at the edge of the tape all the way up to the top. Okay, it is so close to being done, like, I don't know, 5 minutes. I've hemmed everything. I decided to go for the same decorative stitch that we did on the pockets one, so that wasn't the only place where it was, but 2, it's fancy, and 3, it actually makes the machine go a lot slower. And although I hate hemming because it takes forever, I think this is the best hem on a circular skirt that I've ever done, just because I had to take things slowly because that's how slow the machine goes. So last thing we've got to do is add our dungaree bits. And I have never done this before, but I can't imagine it's too difficult. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add that part. It's got a little stud, which I guess we just poke through and hammer in like it'll lock in place. So I'm going to do those at each end on here. You could, if you wanted, measure this. Oh, hang on, let's be clever for a second. I fold it in half, stab through both of them. In all, that would probably be a lot better, but I don't, so I'm just going to stab through with my seam ripper. So now we've got symmetrical guide holes. Sometimes I'm clever and it really amazes me. Maybe it needs a hammer. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is get this slidey thing here, and that's just going to be looped through in one end and out the other. So it looks like that at the back, that at the front. I'm just going to scoot that down there for a second out of the way. We have the actual front buckly bit, and this way round, so square part down, we're going to do exactly the same thing. Thread it through and then back down. So I think I could loop it back through the back again. I think if I was using maybe a thinner or a less rough material, that would be a good idea. But because this has a lot of friction because of the pile, I'm not going to do that because I don't think I'd be able to move it if I did. That's going to go up here. We're going to go back to this first one and then just pull it out a little bit so I can thread this end back through here. So it's like we're threading it again, but the reverse of what we did the first time. So it should look a little something like this. Now I don't want this flapping about, so what I'm going to do is tuck it over 1 centimetre and then bring it down and sew it to the back of this loop here. So this is still going to be able to move, but that's not going to be flapping all over the place. This is on the back camera. You guys are going to see this before I do. I'm very excited about this. I hope it looks good. What do you think? What do I think? I don't know what it looks like yet. Oh, this is the cutest thing. This is my new favourite thing I've ever made. Look how cute I am! And on this very cheerful note, I'd like to say ta for watching until the end. I hope you've enjoyed it and I hope to see you next time. Stay spooky!